In 530 BC, the most powerful ruler in the world met an unexpected rival, not on a glorious battlefield or in a triumphant parade, but in the unforgiving steppes of Central Asia at the hands of a woman whose name would be remembered in history as both liberator and executioner. What followed would chill even the hardest warriors of the ancient world. Queen Tomyris of the Massagetae exacted such vengeance that she redefined the very meaning of royal retribution. This was not merely a defeat, but the story of the savage and terrifying forces unleashed when absolute power is challenged. Under Cyrus the Great, the Persian Empire had grown into an immense force, stretching from the Mediterranean to the Hindu Kush. For over 30 years, Cyrus combined military genius with calculated mercy, conquering kingdom after kingdom. He had built the largest empire the world had ever seen, upon the ashes of fallen thrones and the submission of countless peoples. But in 530 BC, his gaze turned toward the harsh lands beyond the Jaxartes River, where the Massagetae lived free under the iron rule of their warrior queen. The Massagetae were nothing like the kingdoms Cyrus had subdued before. They were nomadic warriors who lived by the sword, drank blood mixed with milk, and worshipped the god of war above all others. Women fought alongside men, and leadership was earned, not by bloodline but by battlefield prowess. In this world, Tomyris had claimed her throne, not through intrigue, but through her own courage and martial skill. When Cyrus first approached Massagetae lands, he tried his usual strategy, diplomacy backed by a show of force. According to Herodotus, he proposed marriage to Tomyris, hoping to absorb her kingdom into his empire without bloodshed. But Tomyris saw through the ruse immediately and rejected it outright. Her answer was clear: the Massagetae would never submit to foreign rule, and any Persian who set foot on their land would find only death. This rejection cut deeply into Cyrus's pride. In his eyes, a barbarian queen had dared to defy the conqueror of Babylon, the liberator of the Jews, the king of kings. Such an insult could not be answered with mere conquest, but only with total domination. Thus, Cyrus prepared for what would become the final campaign of his life. Campaign meant not only to bring the steppes under Persian rule, but to add Tomyris to his list of defeated monarchs. What he did not know was that he was marching into the most cunning trap he had ever faced. The Persians' initial advance into Massagetae territory went exactly as planned. Persian engineers built a bridge across the Jaxartes, while scouts reported that the Massagetae were retreating deeper inland. To Cyrus, this seemed proof that fear had broken their courage, confirming his belief that barbarian bravery crumbled before civilized power. His army advanced confidently, cutting into the steppes like a dagger into flesh. But Tomyris was not retreating. She was luring the Persians away from their supply lines and into terrain where her cavalry held every advantage. What seemed to be empty wilderness to Persian eyes was in fact a land dotted with hidden water sources, camps, and ambush points the Massagetae had relied on for generations. Each step the Persians took carried them deeper into the death trap Tomyris had been preparing since Cyrus's first proposal of marriage. The trap closed with masterful precision. Tomyris had a portion of her forces feign retreat, drawing the Persians toward a seemingly vulnerable camp. There, only a small contingent offered token resistance before fleeing. Inside the camp, the Persians discovered supplies including large quantities of wine, a luxury rare among them. Believing they had won an easy victory, the Persians began to celebrate, drinking deeply from the captured wine. Unbeknownst to them, they were toasting their own destruction. During this ruse, an important prisoner was also taken. Tomyris' son Spargapite, captured along with several high-ranking Massagetae warriors. Yet this was no accident, it was part of Tomyris' design. His capture gave her the perfect justification to unleash vengeance. When Tomyris learned that her son had been taken, she sent a message to Cyrus that would echo through history. According to Herodotus, it was both a diplomatic challenge and a piece of psychological warfare. She offered to exchange 1/3 of her army for her son's return, then taunted Cyrus, "Do not boast of capturing women and children. If you are truly strong, face me and my army in open battle." To refuse would appear cowardly. To accept would give Tomyris the war she sought. Cyrus, blinded by arrogance, rejected the offer. He chose to use Spargapises as leverage to force Tomyris into submission, but he did not understand that for the Massagetae death in battle was far more honorable than life in captivity. When Spargapises realized he had become a pawn against his mother, he chose the path of honor. According to accounts, he asked for his bonds to be loosened, then used his freedom to take his own life. News of her son's death struck Tomyris like fire. No longer a calculating commander, she became vengeance itself. Sources tell of grief so profound it was transformed into a thirst for blood. She sent one final message to Cyrus. Now it was no longer about land or independence. It was about a mother's revenge. It was no longer an imperial war, but a personal reckoning. Tomyris's words to Cyrus were remembered in history as a terrifying oath. Bloodthirsty Cyrus, do not drown yourself in wine and boast of victory. Do not destroy my son and leave my land. I will allow you to depart unharmed. But if you refuse, I swear by the sun, the lord of the Massagetae, that no matter how thirsty for blood you may be, I will give you your fill of it. These were not mere threats. In Massagetae belief, blood was sacred essence. Tomyris's oath meant not just to defeat her enemy, but to claim ritual vengeance through blood itself. She was sealing Cyrus's fate with a curse that would follow him beyond the battlefield, into death. Cyrus, raised in the Persian code of honor, dismissed these beliefs as barbaric cries. He could not grasp the deeper meaning. But with the death of her son, diplomacy had ended. Tomyris had now united all the Massagetae clans under a single banner. The force she gathered was unlike anything Cyrus had ever faced. It was not an imperial army, but a swarm of mounted warriors who vanished into the boundless steppe and reappeared at will. Each warrior was raised on horseback from childhood, able to fire arrows with deadly precision while at full gallop. Their composite bows could pierce Persian armor with ease. Their small but hardy steppe ponies survived on grass alone and could travel for days without rest, an enormous advantage over Persian cavalry, which relied on grain and regular feeding. And above all, they were fighting for their homeland and very existence. Tomyris also chose the battlefield with cunning mastery. The terrain rendered Persian heavy infantry and siege machines useless, while maximizing the deadliness of Massagetae mounted archers. According to sources, the battle took place near a river crossing. Retreat was nearly impossible for the Persians, but the Massagetae had limitless room for maneuver. When the clash began, it resembled nothing like the disciplined engagements that had crowned Cyrus's past victories. The Massagetae assault struck like a force of nature. Thousands of horsemen appeared from every direction, darkening the sky with arrows, then vanished back into the steppe only to strike again elsewhere. Persian infantry, unable to close with an enemy who refused to fight conventionally, were cut down without ever seeing their attackers clearly. Accounts differ, but all agree that Cyrus fell amid the chaos. Some say he was struck by an arrow while rallying his troops, others that he was surrounded and slain during a desperate cavalry charge. What is certain is that his death marked a total collapse of the Persian army. Deprived of their commander, Persian soldiers scattered in small groups, desperately trying to flee. Most never returned home. Their bones were left to bleach beneath the endless skies of the very steppes they had sought to conquer. But for Tomyris, Cyrus's death in battle was not enough. She had sworn vengeance, and it had to be fulfilled, not only through death, but through ritual. From among tens of thousands of corpses, Cyrus's body was found and brought before the queen. What followed became one of the most chilling scenes in recorded history. Tomyris ordered a wineskin to be filled with the blood of fallen Persian soldiers. This was no random cruelty, it was the sacred fulfillment of her earlier vow. When the preparation was complete, Tomyris seized Cyrus's severed head and thrust it into the blood-filled wineskin. Then she spoke to the dead emperor. I am alive, and I have defeated you in battle, but you robbed me of my son with treachery. Now I fulfill my promise and give you your fill of blood. This was not a fit of rage, it was a cold, calculated, ritual act. Tomyris was not merely humiliating her enemy, she was binding him with a curse, condemning the man who had defiled the bond of motherhood to eternal unrest. For ancient chroniclers, it was unthinkable savagery. For the Massagetae, it was sacred justice. Tomyris had not merely slain Cyrus, she had condemned him to wander the afterlife eternally thirsty and unfulfilled. The death of Cyrus and the horrific treatment of his body spread rapidly across the ancient world. The news was carried by the few Persian soldiers who had managed to escape the steppe, and by traders who witnessed the aftermath. As the story was retold, it took on legendary proportions. In some versions, Queen Tomyris's military genius was highlighted, while in others, the gruesome fate of the world's greatest emperor was emphasized. The Greek historian Herodotus preserved the account not merely as a record, but as a moral lesson about arrogance, pride, and the deadly cost of underestimating one's enemy. For the Persians, the consequences were devastating. Losing both the founder of the empire and a significant portion of its army plunged the state into a destabilizing succession crisis. The throne eventually passed to Cyrus's son Cambyses II, yet all northern campaigns were brought to an abrupt end. Never again would a Persian ruler dare to challenge the steppes remained beyond imperial authority, free for centuries to come. For the Massagetae, this victory elevated Queen Tomyris to one of the most feared rulers of the ancient world. Her success in defending nomadic freedom inspired other steppe peoples to resist foreign conquest. Thus, resistance to outside domination became a tradition that endured for more than 1,000 years. The tactics she used against the Persians' constant mobility, mastery of terrain, and the neutralization of regular armies became standard strategies for nomadic peoples. From the Scythians to the Mongols, Tomyris's triumph was not confined to the battlefield. It reshaped perceptions as well. She proved that the mightiest empire in the world could be defeated by those dismissed as barbarians. The image of Cyrus's head, submerged in blood, became a potent symbol of the limits of imperial power and the terrible consequences of underestimating one's foe. Even today, historians continue to debate the details. Ancient sources often contradict one another, and archaeological evidence is scarce. Yet the core truth remains. A nomadic queen used her intimate knowledge of local conditions and tactical brilliance to annihilate a massive imperial army. This is why the story of Tomyris endures not merely as a tale of war, but as a timeless narrative that challenges entrenched assumptions about power, gender, and civilization. Her strategies offer lessons in psychological warfare, strategic deception, and the exploitation of cultural differences, turning her son's captivity into the spark for total war, manipulating Persian pride and codes of honor, and carefully choosing her battlefield all demonstrated that she was no barbarian, but a sophisticated military thinker. Her terrible vengeance was not mindless brutality, but a deliberate message meant to deter future invasions. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of this story lies in the questions it raises about justice and proportionality. From the Persian perspective, Cyrus was following the conventional methods of imperial expansion. From Tomyris's perspective, he was an invader who had killed her son and threatened her people's survival. The clash of these two worldviews produced violence so shocking that even the war-hardened ancient world it reminds us that the bloodiest conflicts often arise not from pure evil, but from irreconcilable differences in values and beliefs. In the end, Queen Tomyris achieved what no other enemy of Cyrus the Great had managed. She did not merely defeat him, she erased him. The Persian Empire survived, expanding in other directions, but the northern steppes remained forever closed. The land that had swallowed Cyrus and his army remained free, defended by the memory of a queen who proved that even the greatest conqueror in history could be undone by someone more ruthless than he ever imagined. Tomyris' legacy stands as a monument to the terrible power of maternal vengeance and to the heavy price empires pay when they mistake cultural difference for weakness.